There are those in the world who try to make the world into a very narrow place. And then there are others who try to open it up wide. We are honored tonight to have as our guest speaker one who tries to open up the world. Yair Lootsteen is the chairperson of the IMPJ, the Israel Movement for Progressive Judaism. He has spent much of his life working to promote the ideals of liberal Judaism in Israel and clearly around the world. Yair is a lawyer. He served as the IDF's military advocate general in their corps for a quarter of a century. He served in Judea and Samaria, in the West Bank, also in Gaza, working on legal issues with the IDF. He is a champion of liberal Judaism in Israel, and we are honored and delighted that he is with us this evening to share his thoughts and to teach us about what is happening in Israel, a most difficult place today, a place that our hearts and our souls are one with in this time of incredible pain. Please join me in welcoming Yair Lootsteen to our congregation.
Shabbat Shalom. I'm thrilled to be here with you this evening, and thank you for inviting me to speak before this Kihilat Kodesh, this community of holiness, on this Erev Shabbat. These are heavy, gloomy days for us living in Israel. Most of us are not yet post-traumatic, still living the trauma of October 7th and what has transpired since. A year ago, we at the IMPJ, the Israeli Reform Movement, started preparing for our Vida, our biennial, a movement-wide celebration which was supposed to take place during the last few days of May this year. At the beginning of this year, 2024, the steering committee of that biennial realized that it was no time for celebration. Some of us believed that at this stage of the war, at the very least, we would already see the light at the end of the tunnel. As it says here, roll into dark, roll into light. Unfortunately, we still find ourselves deep, deep, deep in those tunnels. 120 of our brothers and sisters, quite literally so in Gaza, having been taken hostage more than 250 days ago, with very little light in sight. So instead of having a movement-wide celebration, we decided to hold a day-long ingathering of our communities. It took place exactly 3 weeks ago in a place called Kiryat Moriah in Jerusalem. We thought that maybe 250 or 300 people would show up. We knew the caterers could provide food for 620. We closed registration at 750. And at Kabbalat Shabbat, on the lawn of the venue, we had over 1,000 people from over 50 of our kihilot, our communities from around the country. That's 1,000 plus Israeli Reform Jews coming to pray together. At the opening plenary that morning, we had several speakers, amongst them a man by the name of Lee Siegel, who is the treasurer of our kihila in a kibbutz called Kibbutz Gezer. The Kihila's name is Birkat Shalom. Lee's brother, Keith, as well as his wife, Aviva, were taken hostage by Hamas terrorists on October 7th from their home in Kibbutz Aza, very near the border of Gaza. Aviva was released late last November in the only round of hostage releases which has taken place till now, and since then she has become well known not only in Israel, describing some of the particular horrors women endured while in captivity. At the plenary, Lee talked of his despair because of our government's lack of true willingness to come to an agreement with Hamas for the release of the remaining hostages. He talked too of the support he receives from his community and from our movement, having been embraced and strengthened by both. Lee is with us almost every Shabbat or Motzei Shabbat, Saturday night at the Havdalah services. Our rabbis lead in Hostage Square in Tel Aviv, services usually attended by hundreds. The second speaker at that plenary that I want to note is Anna Astamker. Anna is the CEO of my own community, Kilat Kol Shema in Jerusalem. She is also the first cousin of Karina Ariav, a 19-year-old woman soldier who was abducted by Hamas militants from her base on Kibbutz Nachal Oz, one of the women soldiers serving in an intelligence unit who for weeks before October 7th were warning their commanders that something unusual was taking place on the other side of the fence, but no one listened nor believed. Most of the women with whom Karina served in Nachal Oz were slaughtered that horrific morning, more than a dozen. A handful were taken hostage. Anna, Karina's first cousin, noted at the plenary that Karina's parents were besides themselves, at home most of the time. They feared that Karina might be pregnant. Anna too mentioned the strength and support she feels being embraced by her kihila and by our movement. I'm usually pretty proud to be the chairperson of the Israeli Reform Movement. I have been doubly so since that horrific day. And during the 8.5 months, yes, friends, 8.5 months, I have learned the term to punch above our weight. From day one, our movement has punched well above our weight, exhibiting our growing influence within Israeli society. We are a force to be reckoned with. To begin with our rabbis, the backbone of our movement, they have been absolutely stellar, providing pastoral and spiritual guidance to all of their congregants. People who have lost loved ones, parents of soldiers serving in Gaza and elsewhere, families of hostages, helping those tens of thousands who have been displaced from their homes in the southern and northern regions of the country, now living in hotels and guest houses around the country, officiating at funerals, including a novelty for us in the Reform Movement, military funerals, and much, much more. I want to note 3 remarkable rabbis in particular. Yair Vorgan, the rabbi of our community in the Shar HaNegev Regional Council. This is a sui generis kehila with no building of its own, serving kibbutzim in the area most particularly affected by the ravages of Hamas on October 7th. Kfar Aza, Nachal Oz, Miflasim, Nir'am, Or Haner, and more. Before the war, they met every Erev Shabbat in the Moadon, the clubhouse of one of those kibbutzim. On October 7th, the regional council took a hit from which it has yet to recover, even now after 8 months. Hundreds killed within that regional council, many taken hostage, hundreds physically and emotionally injured, and communities dispersed. Unprecedented physical destructions of the communities themselves. Yair Vorgan, Rabbi Yair Vorgan, has provided spiritual and pastoral care for her dispersed flock and has officiated at dozens of funerals. The second rabbi is Yael Kari, the rabbi of Mateh Asher Regional Council along the border with Lebanon. Her communities dispersed all over the country. They are now in 7 different hotels in different places around the country. She herself has had to move 7 times since October 7th. Lastly, Rabbi Orit Rosenpleet of our community in Kiryat Shmona. That's in the north as well, near the Lebanese border. Orit's home is in the town of Metula, which is literally on the border with Lebanon. 50% plus of the beautiful homes in that community have been destroyed by Hezbollah, and her Kiryat Shmona community dispersed all over the country. And to add to that, her own personal nephew was killed in fighting in Gaza. 3 remarkable spiritual leaders caring for their flocks in unfathomable conditions. There's not time this evening to describe all the other remarkable things our movement has done since October 7th, and I'll just give you some headlines. From day one, our Tikkun Olam branch has provided much needed support, physical, educational, emotional, to thousands of people who have been internally displaced and are living in temporary housing and hotels in places all around the country. Members of our communities have been volunteering. An example, and I can speak personally on that, I try to take a day off once every 2 weeks to pick fruit. Laborers have disappeared. They've just disappeared because the government is not allowing anyone from the Judea and Samaria, the West Bank, to come in to pick fruit. And all of the foreign laborers were sent out by their governments back home. So there's no one to pick the fruit. And people from our communities are picking. I've picked strawberries, sweet potatoes, tangerines, grapefruits, avocados, pomelos, and this is the one that gets a laugh, medical marijuana. They check our pockets before we leave. Another thing, making certain that the day after, and we hear a lot about the day after, but not in Gaza nor in Lebanon. I have a lot to say about that. But in Israel itself, will require us to remember that 20% of Israeli citizens are not Jewish and that we must share society with them. IRAC, the Israel Religious Action Center, our remarkable social justice legal arm, has been at the vanguard of that struggle with many successes, ensuring we are not a racist society when racism against Arabs could be so easy and so many who would like to incite against them. We are there to fight the battle to ensure or to try to ensure that that does not happen. Conversions. In 2023, our rabbis and our Batei Din performed more than 300 conversions, over 10% of all the conversions in the state of Israel that year. In 2024, we're on the path to more than 400 reform conversions in Israel. It's amazing. And it's rather remarkable that since October 7th, more people living in Israel want to be Jewish, and they're coming to us for help to become so, to be converted to be Jewish. The hostages. I've already mentioned Havdalah services in Tel Aviv for families in different public spaces around, and it's also taking place in different public spaces around the country every Saturday evening. And we're also on the streets supporting their families and demanding real bona fide actions by our government. There cannot be a victory in this war, if there can be a victory at all, without these hostages and their bodies returned. And as Maimonides said, there is no greater mitzvah than the redemption of captives. We must have them home now. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, not mentioning what you here in North America are going through and other places around the world, rampant anti-Semitism, and we understand that there is also a generational divide. We are not oblivious to that and are not ambivalent to that. And please know how important and how much we in Israel feel the need for your solidarity missions. A friend from Australia who's been to Israel 3 times since October 7th said to me recently, he's been coming to Israel since 1966. He said, I've never had I've been coming twice a year ever since then. Never in all those years has he found Israelis coming up to him in the streets and saying, Toda Rabba, thank you for coming here. It's so important to know that you care. And I encourage you, if you can, just like if you can get up for the Amidah, get up and be counted in Israel as well. It means a lot to us as well. So I won't have time to talk about the following things. Okay, Lebanon with no end in sight, rebuilding communities in the south, the absolute need for enlistment into the IDF, the Israel Defense Forces, of tens of thousands of ultra-Orthodox Haredi young men who now enjoy exemptions from service, humanitarian aid to Gaza, Israel's alleged genocide and or other war crimes, the fact that Israelis do not have emotional bandwidth for empathy for many Israelis do not have emotional bandwidth for empathy for the suffering of the Gazans. The media in Israel and what it's showing and not showing of Palestinian suffering in Gaza. And I'm happy to talk about that. If any of you want to ask questions after services, I'm happy to talk about any of those topics. I'll conclude with the following. This week's Parashat HaShavua Behalotcha has myriad components. For lack of time, I won't mention them. Within the Parsha, we find the ancient biblical plea for healing, El Na Refanala, from the book of Numbers. This is a prayer which Moses expressed, asking God for healing for his sister, his own sister Miriam. These Hebrew words have been spoken for thousands of years. I think we can all take a moment to visualize an intention that is personally meaningful, but is also collectively poignant at this time for healing in the state of Israel and for the Jewish people and for all mankind. El Na Refanala, please God, heal them, heal us now. And please join me in saying Amen. Thank you. One other thing, I want to call, Rabbi, please, or cantor, where's the cantor? I don't know who to call in this circumstance right now, but I come bearing gifts as well. I know that I'm not the first person from the IMPJ who's been here in this wonderful community, and to see you all here is very moving tonight. So I brought a gift, a Kiddush cup, from our movement to yours. I'm not going to take it all apart because I've been told I should only speak 8 minutes and I've already spoken 12. I've been told I should be a rabbi. But the plate that's at the bottom of it has an insignia of our movement. And Toda Rabba Lachem, and the partnership with yourselves and other folks around the country is so important to us. That's Toda Rabba and Shabbat Shalom. And if you want a sticker, you're more than welcome to take one, even in Hebrew, about what Maimonides says about the mitzvah of redemption of captives. I was very, very moved as I drove into the complex to see that sign that said, bring them home now in Hebrew and in English and in Arabic. Thank you for doing that too. Toda Rabba.
Thank you so much.
Yair, thank you for the gift. We will use it with joy and solidarity with IMPJ. I do want to encourage anybody who wants to stay afterwards to spend time with Yair, ask any questions, learn more from him. There are also 2 QR codes that are pasted on the tables. I encourage you to use your phones and take pictures of them. They're great videos that you can see of the work of the IMPJ. It's really worth taking a look at. I'm going to ask, we're going to reverse our service a little bit. Would you be willing to read a prayer for Israel?
Obviously.
I'd like to invite those who are able in body or spirit to please rise. And page 259.
אבינו שבשמיים, צור ישראל וגואלו, ברך את מדינת ישראל, ראשית צמיחת גאולתנו. הגן עליה בעברת חסדך, ופרוס עליה סוכת שלומך, ושלח אורך ועמיתך לראשיה, שריה ויועציה, ותקנם בעצה טובה מלפניך, ונתת שלום בארץ, ושמחת עולם ליושביה, ונאמר אמן. Should I read in English? The Heavenly One, Protector and Redeemer of Israel, bless the state of Israel, which marks the dawning of the hopes for all who seek peace. Shield it beneath the wings of your love, spread over it the canopy of your peace. Send your light and truth to all who lead and advise, guiding them with your good counsel. Establish peace in the land and fullness of joy for all who dwell there. And may we all say Amen.
Amen.
And for those who want to, I believe that our movement is amongst the movements in Israel that is leading away to what Israel should be. And the things that we are doing in Israel will bring pride in your eyes for what Israel should be, and I believe that we can actually reach those days bimhera b'yameinu, speedily in our days. Toda Rabba.
Thank you. Please be seated.